Right now at 6, politicians and citizens are in a state of confusion this morning as there are still no results from the Iowa caucuses.
Plus, we have the latest on the coronavirus outbreak and how it's affecting UW's study abroad and international students.
And we're learning more about dark secrets in the Amish community and what's being done about them.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now this morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday, February 4th. I'm Josh Spreiter.
And I'm Leah Linscheid. We start this morning with breaking news overnight. There is currently no clear winner in Iowa's caucuses.
The Democratic Party of Iowa says results are delayed this morning due to, quote, quality checks and inconsistencies in some reporting. The party says the issues are not the result of a hack or intrusion. Officials do expect to release the results at some point today.
Now, officials think the delay is, at least in part, because of the state's party's new system that uses an app to record results. It counts the popular vote from the first round of voting and then an updated tally once caucus goers give their final verdicts. However, some record keepers noticed issues with how the data was being recorded on the app, and in some cases, its failure to update.
It would not let me change his number at all, like to 0. Like if all his people dispersed to other groups, I'd end up with more people than there were actual people there. Well, that doesn't work.
The state's Democratic Party says they're now using pictures of results along with a paper trail to validate the numbers.
Right now, candidates are just as confused as the public by the lack of results this morning. Former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign released this letter asking the Iowa Democratic Party for a full explanation of what went wrong and what measures they have in place to maintain the integrity of the caucus.
Pete Buttigieg, however, is declaring a victory even without official results. When he addressed his supporters in Des Moines last night, he said they have proved the skeptics wrong.
Because by all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious.
Now, Buttigieg will be live on CBS this morning just after 7 a.m. to explain his speech last night and react to the latest developments out of Iowa.
President Trump is tweeting in just the last few minutes that the Democrat caucus is a, quote, an unmitigated disaster, and he's the only one that can claim victory in Iowa. The president's campaign manager slammed the Democrats for the delayed results overnight, saying in a statement that they're stewing in a caucus mess of their own creation with the sloppiest train wreck in history. President Trump won the Republican caucuses, a largely symbolic vote since he wasn't facing any significant opposition. We do know the winner in at least one Des Moines district. Bernie Sanders took that district thanks to a coin toss. The Des Moines Register explains that these coin tosses happen when a caucus gets to the point where it's ready to award delegates, but 2 or more delegates have the same number of supporters. The winner of the coin toss then determines how the delegates in each location will be divided up. Back in 2016, Hillary Clinton and Sanders almost tied it overall in Iowa with 13 caucuses decided by a coin toss that year.
Now, Iowa residents in Wisconsin are also participating in the caucus thanks to a satellite caucus in Milwaukee. Just 7 people took part, but a room full of folks showed up to watch. Within a minute, 3 people voted for Elizabeth Warren, 2 for Bernie Sanders, and 2 more for Amy Klobuchar. Those votes will be added to the entire tally in Iowa.
Looking ahead after Iowa, the first big presidential primary of the 2020 election season will be in New Hampshire 1 week from today. After that, dozens of states and U.S. territories will hold primaries and caucuses before we do in Wisconsin. Ours will happen on April 7th.
Ahead of that, the state DOT is reminding those of you who don't have access to a Wisconsin ID to start the process as soon as possible. They say a driver's license is the most common form of ID for voting purposes, but that's not your only option. The Wisconsin Elections Commission has a list of all valid forms that can be used. You can find it up on Channel3000.com.
Right now, President Trump is preparing to deliver his 4th State of the Union address tonight. Now, this all comes in the middle of the uncertainty in Iowa and the impending impeachment vote. The one thing that stayed steady throughout his term is public opinion. The Associated Press reports President Trump's overall overall approval rating is consistently below 50%. Polls are also showing significant dissatisfaction with the direction of the country, and even more so with the state of politics. Despite those numbers, though, Americans have largely positive views of both the economy and how the president is handling it. CBS News will have live coverage of the president's speech starting at 8 o'clock tonight.
The president's impeachment trial, meanwhile, is nearing its end today. All 100 senators will get 10 minutes to explain their decision on whether to convict President Trump on the 2 counts against him. 67 senators would be needed to convict the president and remove him from office. A final vote on acquittal is set for tomorrow.
All right, 6:05 right now. Meteorologist Hattie McLean joins us now with a look at your weather and traffic on this Tuesday. Good morning, Hattie.
All right, thank you very much, Hattie. To our other top story this morning, new travel rules are in place to try and stop the spread of coronavirus.
That could impact your students' study abroad options on campus. Keely Arthur is live at UW-Madison this morning with the very latest from there. Keely, good morning to you.
Good morning, Leah and Josh. We are live in front of the Red Gym, which houses the UW Study Abroad offices and the offices for international students. Now, as we've reported, China has accused the U.S. of spreading fear about the coronavirus. But with 11 confirmed cases here in the U.S. and more than 400 deaths across the world, precautions are being taken here at the UW and all throughout the country. As we've reported, Delta, United, American Airlines have all given temporary travel flight bans to China. Chicago's O'Hare International Airport is screening passengers on flights from China for coronavirus. Passengers arriving on a flight from Shanghai this past Sunday said some travelers were stopped at the gate. UW officials say there is not an increased risk of coronavirus at UW-Madison. However, they do acknowledge the fact that UW students could have some issues because of the travel ban, specifically those who are in China when the virus began to spread. They are advising those students right now, saying, quote, U.S. international students whose re-entry is restricted should contact International Student Services immediately to discuss their immigration status. Now, as far as study abroad students, there are 11 different programs based in China. According to officials here, though, no American students or any Badger students, for that matter, are in China. And important to note that all of those programs are either in Beijing or Shanghai, none in Wuhan, where coronavirus is really ground zero right now. Leah and Josh.
Keely Arthur reporting live for us this morning. Thank you, Keely.
Time right now is 6:08. New efforts are underway in China right now to prevent the further spread of the coronavirus.
Take a look at this video. It's from Hefei in southern China. Drones are actually going around there, taking a peek at what's going on in China. They're being used to spray disinfectant across public areas. The hope is that it will slow the spread of the virus that's already infected more than 20,000 people across China. Police agencies are also using the drones, equipped with speakers, to help spread information about epidemic prevention and control policies.
All right, 6:09 is your time right now. We are learning more about allegations in the Amish community that often go unpunished because of their isolated nature.
That creates a perfect environment, a perfect situation for abuse to flourish.
Coming up, we'll hear more from a former member of the Amish community and the issue of abuse.
And Hattie says we could see a chance for more snow later in the week. She'll tell us when we can expect those flurries to fly. Next on News 3 Now this morning. Into the alert center this morning. One person is dead and a police officer wounded after a shooting overnight in Milwaukee. Police there say it started when officers tried to stop a reckless driver around 1 a.m. The car ended up crashing and 3 people ran away, shooting back at the officers who were chasing them. One officer was shot. That officer is conscious and in stable condition this morning. Then about an hour later, police found one of the suspects dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The other 2 suspects were arrested.
One man is facing several charges this morning after officers say he tried to get into a locked car with a woman inside. The woman told Madison police Ricardo Curtis tried to get into the car while she was waiting for her boyfriend to make a delivery. She says Curtis walked past the running car multiple times and tried to open the driver's side door. Several officers had to restrain Curtis during his arrest. One hurt his knee in the process.
It's so hard to say goodbye.
Family Family, friends, and community members are remembering 17-year-old Elvin Cole this week. He's the teen who was shot and killed by Wauwatosa police over the weekend in the parking lot of a shopping center. Mall security reported a disturbance involving around 10 people inside the mall on Sunday, and witnesses say one of them had a gun. Officers chased the suspects through the parking lot, firing off a round that hit Cole. He died later at the hospital. Last night, a crowd lit candles, shared stories, and sang songs, all while demanding transparency into the investigation on that shooting.
An ex-Amish woman is fighting to bring awareness about a dark secret she says is happening in that community. Tora Bontrager says her uncle Enos Bontrager first inappropriately touched her when she was around 5 years old. She said nothing ever came of her case because of a statute of limitations, but he just was found guilty by a no contest plea to numerous counts of sexual assault in Columbia County Court, which another victim brought to the judicial system. Bontrager says there are many victims of sexual abuse in the Amish community, but it's so difficult to help them.
Because of the isolation and the separation from the outside world, that creates a perfect environment, a perfect situation for abuse to flourish. And the Amish also have this sort of agreement with law enforcement, with the outside, that we take care of our own problems.
She also explained that if a woman in the Amish community goes to a bishop and accuses a man of sexual assault, the bishop will decide who is at fault, ban that person from the church for a few weeks, and then welcome them back as long as they prove they are worthy to God, and the victim often has to apologize for tempting him.
6:18 on your Tuesday. Still ahead on News 3 Now this morning. We're taking a look at an argument at the state capitol on who to honor this Black History Month.
But first, we've been walking on sunshine these past few days, and the clouds are moving back in as you head off to school or work today. Your bus stop forecast is right after this.
State leaders are split on who they should honor for Black History Month. Republican Scott Allen of Waukesha pushed to honor white abolitionists this month, as well as 4 former slaves. Black lawmakers say they weren't consulted about the resolution and countered with their own to honor 14 prominent African Americans. The state's first Black lieutenant governor, Mandela Barnes, was among those at the Capitol this week, honoring the contributions of Black leadership in Wisconsin.
It's with the spirit of those before us all that we all should be motivated to continue to work as organizers, as legislators, to serve in any capacity, in any office. We know no limits because of the people who were before us, who faced way more adversity than we faced. And while we've come so far, being better than we were yesterday is not good enough for tomorrow.
Last year, the GOP rejected an attempt to include Wisconsin-born Colin Kaepernick in a resolution.
The Madison School District is officially welcoming Dr. Matthew Gutierrez to his new position after the Board of Education approved the new superintendent's 2-year contract. One of the things they'll have to consider is the district's behavior education plan. It steers away from a punishment-based approach, focusing on reducing racial disparities with a, quote, more progressive approach to discipline. As we've reported earlier in the school year, some educators tell us it is not working. The Board of Education heard from administrative staff on how they're implementing suggested changes to the plan, including mental health supports and restorative justice practices.
I think that we have to find other ways of responding to incidents involving our kids in schools, such as BB guns, very dangerous situations, right, that we have to take seriously. But how do we ensure that our children and our students are getting support?
Main goals of the behavior education plan include making students feel a sense of safety and belonging. Specifics on this school year's behavior education plan, which is different for elementary, middle, and high school students, can be found online, and we've put a link to that up on channel3000.com.
All right, 6:25 now. We are starting out our next half hour with an update on the coronavirus and how travel restrictions might impact your student at college.
And while we wait for the delayed results of the Iowa caucuses, we're taking a look at what goes on during the actual caucus itself. You're watching News 3 Now this morning. We thank you for that, and we'll be right back. Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 4th. I'm Josh Spreiter.
And I'm Leah Lynchide. You are taking a live look at downtown Des Moines, Iowa, where there are currently no results in that state's 2020 caucus.
The Democratic Party of Iowa is blaming the chaos on inconsistencies in reporting. Our Amy Reed continues our coverage from the Hawkeye State.
Caucus goers at our downtown Des Moines precinct chose Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and Bernie Sanders, but those not casting a ballot still got a front row seat.
3, 4.
Iowans clumped together and waited to sound off their support. The whole process took more than 2 hours, and about an hour in,
We're just going to count and we're going to keep counting.
the precinct we were at announced they would have to start over. They were able to complete the totals, and people from around the world watched. Some were in town all week to meet the candidates.
You don't get to see your senator or your congresswoman talk for 45 minutes any other time. So you get here and you get to hear them talk and see what they're really like and see if they're driven.
This is round one of many as states across the country get ready for their primaries or caucuses. Even campaigns that don't come out on top still have events all over the country and are gearing up for New Hampshire. With Wisconsin's primary so late in the primary season in April, we'll be watching to see who can make the long haul. Reporting in Des Moines, Iowa, Amy Reed, News 3 Now this morning.
Thank you, Amy. The Iowa Democratic Party says they do expect to announce official caucus results later today.
To our other top story this morning, there are now more than 20,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus across more than 24 countries this morning. 11 of those cases are here in the U.S. Travel restrictions are now being enforced. Foreign nationals who have traveled to China in the last 2 weeks and aren't immediate family members of U.S. citizens or permanent residents are being temporarily banned from entering the country. American citizens returning from China are being rerouted and confined to 11 U.S. airports. Passengers who are in the Chinese province of Wuhan, where the outbreak began, will be under mandatory quarantine for 2 weeks.
The Wisconsin mom and kids who have been stuck in Wuhan during this coronavirus outbreak will be returning to the U.S. today, but they won't be able to go immediately home to Neenah. They'll be held at one of those 11 airports we mentioned and will be monitored for up to 2 weeks. Samuel Roth's family missed the first U.S. evacuation plane last week. He says it's been difficult not having his family safe at home.
My anxiety kind of ends as soon as they get on the airplane. They're really bored. They've been inside the apartment now for almost 2 weeks.
Even with the coronavirus looming in China, Roth says it won't stop him and his family from going back to visit one day.
Here in southern Wisconsin, UW Health is expanding its travel history questions in response to the outbreak. They say based off recommendations from the CDC, patients coming to UW Health emergency departments and urgent care clinics will be asked about any recent travel to China. Initially, patients were only asked about recent travel to Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak.
New travel rules meant to curb the spread of that virus could be impacting study abroad and international students at UW-Madison.
Our Keely Arthur is live on campus with that part of the story. Hi, Keely.
Good morning, Leah and Josh. We are live in front of the Red Gym, which houses the UW Study Abroad offices and the international student offices. Now, China has accused the U.S. of spreading fear about the coronavirus, but with 11 confirmed cases here in this country and more than 400 deaths worldwide, precautions are being taken here at the UW and across the U.S. As we've reported, Delta, United, American Airlines have all temporarily suspended U.S. flights to China. Chicago's O'Hare International Airport is screening passengers on flights from China for coronavirus. Passengers arriving on a flight from Shanghai this past Sunday said some travelers were stopped at the gate. UW officials say there's not an increased risk of coronavirus here. However, they do acknowledge the fact that there could be issues for foreign UW students due to this travel ban who were in China when the virus began to spread. They are advising students from China right now, saying, quote, U.S. international students whose re-entry is restricted should contact International Student Services immediately to discuss their immigration status. As for UW abroad students from the U.S. who could be in China, officials say none of those students are actually in China right now, despite there being 11 separate study abroad programs based either in Beijing or Shanghai. None in Wuhan, though, which is considered ground zero for coronavirus. Josh and Leah.
All right, Keely Arthur live on campus this morning. Keely, thank you.
Thanks, Keely. Non-resident and graduate students on some UW campuses might see their tuition go up. A Regent committee will vote on Thursday on whether to raise rates by up to 25% starting this fall. If that increase is approved, it will go to the full board on Friday. Resident undergraduate tuition has been frozen since 2013, but that restriction does not apply for out-of-state or graduate students. This increase would only apply to students, by the way, at Milwaukee, Oshkosh, Platteville, River Falls, Stevens Point, and Whitewater campuses.
All right, 6:34 right now. Hattie's here with your out-the-door weather and traffic update. Hi, Hattie. Hattie, thank you.
6:35 now. Coming up in the morning sprint, we're talking about what's next for radio host Rush Limbaugh after yesterday's shocking announcement.
But first, we're looking at the impact the Super Bowl commercial is having on the UW as donations are pouring in. Stay with us. This is News 3 Now this morning. The UW-Madison School of Veterinary Medicine is receiving a lot of attention this morning after a Super Bowl commercial shared the story of a golden retriever named Scout's cancer diagnosis and treatment. The UW says they've heard from people all over the world. Companies, including Petco and State Farm, made large donations to the school. One of Scout's doctors says that these donations will make a difference in the underfunded and understaffed community of pet cancer research. Those donations are still rolling in this morning. UW has not announced how much has been raised so far.
Little happy news this morning, love it. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Lombardi Trophy are back home in Missouri this morning, just in time for celebrations to continue there. The team's victory parade is happening tomorrow. Kansas City schools are even closing as more than 1 million people will welcome home their Super Bowl champs.
That won't be the first parade on the victory lap for Super Bowl MVP and Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes fulfilled a lifelong dream Sunday night when he got to say those 5 magic words, "I'm going to Disney World." Mahomes was joined by Mickey Mouse in a parade throughout the Central Florida park. Back in 2013, the quarterback actually tweeted about how amazing it must feel to say the phrase after winning the Super Bowl.
Dreams do come true.
Yes, they do. All right, to your Y Morning picture on this Tuesday. Take a look at this one. Mark is sharing a nice white photo. Looks like maybe a backyard right there.
Boy, this has to be up north a bit. Look at how many inches of snow are on those patio chairs there.
Yes, yeah, I've seen a lot more snow up north just with driving up there. But even around here, we still got a lot of snowpack.
Quite beautiful. Love the trees there.
Thanks for sharing, Mark. If you've got a morning picture that you'd like to share with us, please put it over up on our Facebook page. All right, 6:40 is your time right now, and after a couple days of sunshine, we are heading back under the clouds today. Hattie's also tracking our next chance for some snow coming up in her forecast.
But first, if you have a little kid turning 3 soon, please let us know so we can show their picture on TV. Thanks for watching News 3 Now this morning. 6:50, time for the morning sprint with all the news you need to know as you head out the door.
We start with breaking news overnight. One person is dead and a police officer is wounded after a shooting in Milwaukee. Police there say it started when officers tried to stop a reckless driver around 1 this morning. The car ended up crashing and 3 people tried to run away, shooting back at the officers who were chasing them. 1 officer was shot. That officer is conscious and in stable condition this morning. About an hour later, police found one of the suspects dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The other 2 suspects were arrested.
There is currently no clear winner in Iowa's caucuses this morning. The Democratic Party of Iowa says results are delayed due to quality checks and inconsistencies in some reporting. The party says the issues are not the result of a hack or intrusion. Officials do expect to release the results at some point today.
They'd end up with more people than there were actual people there. Well, that doesn't work.
Officials think the delay could be caused by an app that was used to record results. It counts the popular vote from a first round of voting and then an updated tally once caucus goers give their final verdicts, and figures for pledged delegates that each candidate eventually wins. Some records keep noticed issues with how data was being recorded on the app, and in some cases it's failure to update.
Candidates are just as confused as the public by the lack of results. Joe Biden's campaign released a letter asking the Democratic Party for a full explanation of what went wrong and what measures they have in place to maintain the integrity of the caucus.
Because by all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious.
Pete Buttigieg, however, is claiming a victory this morning even without the official results. When he addressed his supporters in Des Moines, he said they've proved the skeptics wrong. He'll be on CBS this morning at the top of the hour to explain his reaction.
President Trump is tweeting this morning that the Democratic caucus is, quote, an unmitigated disaster. The president's campaign manager, Brad Parscale, slammed the Democrats for the delayed results overnight, saying in a statement that they're stewing in a caucus mess of their own creation with the sloppy happiest train wreck in history. President Trump won the Republican caucuses, a largely symbolic vote since he wasn't facing any significant opposition.
President Trump is preparing to deliver his fourth State of the Union address tonight in the middle of the uncertainty in Iowa and as an impeachment trial. The Associated Press reports President Trump's overall approval rating is consistently below 50%. Despite those numbers, Americans have largely positive views of both the economy and how the president is handling it. CBS will have coverage of the president's speech starting at 8 tonight.
The president's impeachment trial, meanwhile, is nearing its end today. All 100 senators will get 10 minutes to explain their decision on whether to convict President Trump on the 2 counts against him. 67 senators would be needed to convict the president and remove him from office. A final vote on acquittal is set for tomorrow.
I have been diagnosed with advanced lung cancer.
Rush Limbaugh, one of America's leading conservative voices for the past several decades, shocked his listeners with that message about his health. Professionally, he is known as a champion of conservative causes. Limbaugh says he will be off the airwaves for the next few days as his doctors figure out his treatment.
An ex-Amish woman here in Wisconsin is fighting to bring awareness about sexual assault in that community. Tora Bontrager says her uncle, Enos Bontrager, assaulted her, but nothing ever came of the case. She says there are many victims of sexual abuse in the Amish community, but it's difficult to help them due to the culture of that community.
Classes are canceled today at a Texas university after a deadly shooting. 2 women were killed and a 2-year-old was hurt at Texas A&M's campus yesterday. Officers found the bodies inside the co-ed freshman residence hall. Police haven't released a motive in the shooting and haven't said whether they're looking for a suspect. The toddler is in stable condition right now.
Now, the travel bans meant to curb the spread of the coronavirus could impact UW study abroad students and international students here at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Despite there being 11 study abroad programs in China, no study abroad students are in China right now. None of those programs, though, are based in Wuhan, where the coronavirus is believed to have originated. As for the international students who may be stuck in China, so students not from the U.S., the UW is asking those students to contact university officials to discuss their student and immigration status. Leah?
Thank you, Keely. Non-resident and graduate students on some UW campuses might see their tuition go up. A Regent committee will vote on Thursday on whether to raise those rates up to 25% starting this fall. If that increase is approved, it will go to the full board on Friday. This increase would only apply to students at Milwaukee, Oshkosh, Platteville, River Falls, Stevens Point, and Whitewater campuses.
ACT scores continue to decline for the 6th straight year in Wisconsin. Right now, the state's composite score is 19.6 compared to last year's 19.8. In the 2014-15 school year, that score was 20. ACT scores are one of the deciding factors in college admittance. For UW-Madison, an ACT score in the range of 27 to 32 is recommended.
Madison City Council will discuss the future of an Eastside nightclub at their meeting tonight. The owners of Silk Exotic want to buy Visions on East Washington Avenue and rebrand it as Silk Exotic Madison East. The city's Alcohol License Review Committee recommended denying them a liquor license last month, citing concerns over the safety of that neighborhood. Visions is currently closed.
Madison transportation staff are recommending bus rapid transit routes for the west side and downtown. Madison.com reports the route proposal includes State Street and the Capitol Square. It requires rerouting some regular city buses onto Broome and Bassett Streets and West Wash to reduce the congestion on State. The city hopes to implement the service by 2024 to reduce traffic. And thank you for joining us. Go make it a great day, everyone. And of course, we'll see you back here tomorrow starting at 4:30.